Good evening. That was on cue and I didn't even have to say anything. That's awesome. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're going to go ahead and start and call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock on the dot. And we're going to please stand up for the moment of silence, and then we'll proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me with pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, and we're going to proceed with our first item, convene with the public hearing. Convene public hearing pursuant of ARS 15-948C and D and 15905D to review revision number 3 to the expenditure budget, including the maintenance and operations and district additional assistance, formerly capital outlay and unrestricted capital budgets for 2017-2018. I need a motion.
A motion to convene public hearing?
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Pengarelli and a second by Mr. Sandoval to convene a public hearing. All in favor? Oh, wait. We can do, you have it up? Let's do a voice vote, Mr. Sandoval's technicals. We'll do a voice vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. And Ms. Myers?
Well, thank you very much. Good evening, President Ceja Martinez, members of the Governing Board, Mrs. Pallas Thompson. It's a pleasure to be here this evening to provide information regarding budget revision number 3 for the fiscal 2018 school year. And I'll ask for the presentation to be pulled up, please. There it is. Tonight, I will discuss the background and requirements related to budget revisions for the 2018 fiscal year and review budget changes for maintenance and operation, district additional assistance, classroom site funds, grant programs, and cash-controlled funds. Arizona Revised Statute 15905 permits Arizona school districts to revise their budget each year by May 15th. The revision requires governing board approval and allows the district to capture full funding capacity as well as to review budget to actual expenditures prior to June 30th, which is our year end. This is the third budget revision for the year. If you'll recall, the first revision was in October, when we recognized the teacher 1.06 pay increase. The second revision was in December, and at that time we recognized fiscal 2017 carry forward balances, as well as student average daily membership growth, and a prior year budget adjustment that was reflected in the current year. In this budget revision, maintenance and operations is being increased $1.5 million as a result of 100th day student counts that included increases in special education weighted student counts and ELL students. In this budget revision, district additional assistance, also known as capital, funding decreased by just under $400,000 due to a final statewide calculation that was published for fiscal 2018. For Prop 301 Classroom Site Fund, there is no change from budget revision number 2 to this budget revision. Budget revision number 3 also includes budget adjustments for federal grants. That includes an increase for Title I funding in the amount of $172,226 as a result of the grant budget being approved late in the year. In addition, cash-controlled funds and budgets related to those funds were reviewed and adjusted if necessary. Administration does recommend that the governing board approve the fiscal 2018 budget revision as presented. And that concludes the presentation, and I am available to answer your questions at this time or if there's public comment.
Thank you again for that information and the timeline as well as we continue to move forward and pay attention to those budgets. Mrs. Connect, do you have any questions or comments? I do not. Mrs. Pangarelli?
I do not. Thank you, though.
Mr. Sandoval?
I do not, thank you.
Ms. Stone?
No, thank you.
I do not have any questions or comments as well, thank you. And we do not have any public comment at this time. So, with that being said and the information presented, I will need a motion.
I will move that we approve the budget revision as presented.
And Madam President,
Sure.
excuse me, I believe we
This is
we need
Seijas
to-
Martinez. We have to adjourn that
And then go back
first.
into, thank you. I
Okay.
apologize, I was getting ahead of myself. I need a motion to adjourn so that we can go back into the original agenda.
Motion to adjourn the public hearing?
I second. We'll do a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. I was excited to accept the money. All right, we are moving forward to recognitions. And we'll go ahead and start off with Miss Airy.
Good evening, President Seija Martinez, members of the board, Mrs. Pallas Thompson. It's a pleasure to be here before you this evening as well with some wonderful recognitions to share with you all of which are staff recognitions. And as you know, we have really some remarkable staff in our district, so we're really pleased to have a full slate of recognitions for you this evening. A National Board Certification is an advanced voluntary teaching credential which extends beyond obtaining a regular state license to teach. To be considered, you must possess a bachelor's degree, have a valid state teaching license, and have at least 3 years classroom experience. However, obtaining a National Board Certification is an extremely rigorous process, and those who receive it are perceived to be among the best educators in the nation. You must demonstrate proficiency in a number of areas, including knowledge, differentiated instruction, teaching practice, and learning environment, and you must also complete a very detailed portfolio with artifacts, student samples, and analysis. Your portfolio must be robust, and you must also take a timed test to demonstrate your depth of content knowledge. So certainly not for the faint of heart to pursue something that is so prestigious. This certification, in fact, can take up to 5 years to complete. More than 91,000 teachers are National Board certified nationwide, which equates to just under 3% of the nation's teachers. So as you can understand, very prestigious to receive such recognition. We are so proud that in the Peoria Unified School District, we have 6 teachers in our family who are National Board certified teachers. We have invited them to be here with us this evening, some of which have received their recognition and very recently, and some who have been certified for quite some time. But nonetheless, we wanted to bring them all forward for you tonight. So it is with pleasure that we introduce to you 4 of them that are here and have joined us this evening, and 2 that were unfortunately unable to be here, but we want to make sure we recognize them as well. Teachers, when you hear your name, if you would stand so that we can recognize you, give you a round of applause, and then when we conclude here in just a moment, I'll invite you up in case the board has any words that they'd like to share with you. Patricia Farley, 7th grade teacher at Marshall Ranch Elementary. Is Patricia here with us tonight? Maybe hasn't made it just yet. Melissa Grimsheed, science teacher at Centennial High School. Jana Guino, 5th grade teacher at Heritage Elementary School. Jennifer Polbraddock, ceramics visual arts teacher at Cactus High School. And two others who I know weren't able to join us this evening, Callie Cashett, 5th grade teacher at Vistancia Elementary School, and Tina Torres, 6th grade teacher at Sunset Heights Elementary School. To these educators, I know on behalf of the Peoria Unified School District, we are just incredibly proud of you and of your achievements. And if I could invite you up here, I know our board probably has some words and some encouragement that they'd like to share with you. So I'll invite the three of you up here. And Governing Board, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, congratulations, and we'll go ahead and start with Ms. Stone.
Well, congratulations. I know it was a lot of hard work. Thank you for your dedication and hard work.
Mr. Sandoval.
Yes, agreed. Thank you very much. I mean, to be part of certainly an elite group, right? 3% across the nation, was that I heard? Part of that 3%. Certainly, we're proud, as a district, to say that you're part of our team. Jan and Melissa, you two are, I see you a lot around, certainly at our board meetings. So in addition to, a lot of the work that you went through to, realize this accolade, your continued, certainly support of the district, our students, our teachers and staff is unparalleled. So I just congratulate each and every one of you, for your hard work and your dedication, really, to the future, of our society. So thank you for that.
Ms. Pangarelli?
Oh, well, I also want to say congratulations. I have the pleasure of at least being able to talk to two of you in the past. And it's really nice seeing a science teacher getting this award, as being a scientist myself. But congratulations to all of you. And ceramics is something that I don't know anything about. So I could actually learn from you, I'm sure, a great deal. But congratulations, and thank you for being here tonight.
Ms. Connect?
Thank you. I'm familiar with the K-12 Center. That's what you went through, right? And I know it's an incredible investment of your time and energy. But it turns out to be so fabulous for us because now you're all feathers in our cap, and you can serve as mentors to the other teachers at your schools. And of course, really the ability to bring the knowledge and expertise to your students is the greatest gift of all. So thank you, all three of you, and your colleagues who couldn't be here tonight.
Well, thank you. I had the privilege of attending the ceremony with you on Saturday evening, and it was such an honor. And the fact that you would honor your own profession by increasing your education acumen is your testament and dedication to the profession. So I appreciate that. I do have one question. I'm so grateful that this board previously has honored the stipend to support future National Board Certified teachers. How will this impact our students?
Well, part of the process is where you do your lessons, but you have to reflect a lot. A lot of board certification is being able to reflect on your practices and correct your practices, know when your practices could be improved, and know when your practices are good but still could be improved. So a lot of it is reflecting on your own teaching, reflecting on how the students respond to that teaching, and then being able to write about it and being able to identify areas that you need growth in and identify areas you do well in, but still could use some growth.
But National Boards also teaches you how to systematically analyze your teaching. So you become continually analyzing exactly what you need to do for each one of your students, where that's different than every other professional development. Every other professional development that I have been a part of in other districts has been kind of a one-size-fits-all package. And National Board Certification teaches you how to analyze what you do and how that impacts every different learner in your classroom. So that's how it's going to impact every student every day in our classrooms, in our schools.
I would hate to say they stole my answer. But being in a district that's very focused on personalized learning, National Board Certification was personalized learning for professional development and made a huge difference, especially teaching our students to self-reflect. It's all about self-reflection. And so that really hammered that point home for me, I know personally.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time and dedication. Please continue as you go on your career path, how the board can continue to help those personalized and self-reflection activities or professional development. So thank you.
Thank you.
As if we can, I'd like to take a quick photo of the three of you, if you don't mind, stepping in front of our board here, and they're used to just sliding out of the way there. They'll move aside for us, and we'll just take a quick picture of you if we could, so we can continue to brag about you. Thank you. One more round of applause for them. And congratulations. Well, President Ceja Martinez, if I may, there's still more to come from our incredible staff members here, and something a little bit different that we decided to do this year. We have had the pleasure this evening, before the board meeting started, you may have noticed a little bit of excitement out in our lobby, but we were celebrating our dedicated employees who have served our district and are retiring at the end of this school year. We appreciate that fine retiree reception and our Human Resources Department that decided to kind of change things up a little bit and how we recognize and honor our retirees. We thought it would be perfect to have this reception for them and have an opportunity for them and their families to mingle here, and then to bring them before you all in recognition of all that they have done and all the contributions that they have made to our school district. So while not all of them were able to be with us this evening, there should be a list in front of you that outlines all of our 90 staff members who are retiring at the end of this year. I'll tell you, interestingly enough, of that list that you are looking at, the average tenure and time served in our district of that list that you're looking at is 30 years. So really just a wonderful contribution that they have made. I think that deserves a round of applause. Who have joined us this evening. What we'd like to do is, there's so many of you to list, that's why we've printed the outline that you have there, but if we can have you all please collectively stand so that we can give you a huge round of applause for your service. I think I can speak, at least for all the administration in the room, the many of us who have had the opportunity to work with so many of you over the years, your students, the community in our district. We just appreciate all that you have done to serve our school district, to serve our community, and of course our students over the years. Certainly there's expertise in this room that we know can never be replaced, but we are certainly forever grateful. So thank you for your contributions on all that you have done to serve our school district. Likewise, we can't let you escape here this evening or at the end of the year without getting your lovely photo also here in front of our, here in our boardroom. So we're going to ask if you could one more time stand, and we'll have you come right in front of our board, and then we'll have some time for some questions, of course. And any family members who might be here this evening, please, all paparazzi shots are welcome. So please feel free to get a good angle if you'd like and take a photo. We'll have you scoot much closer together if you could. And shift just a little bit this way. Might need a couple of volunteers to come.
This is the soccer guy. What's
A
that?
little tighter there. There we go.
Sorry.
Wonderful. I think we have a few more shots. You're so famous. Share those on social media. Use hashtag Peoria Unified Pride because we'd love to share them as well. Wow, you guys are like really famous. They're still going. That's wonderful. Very good. Well, we'll let you come on back to your seats, but congratulations to you all. And I know we have some very proud principals and other staff members that were here celebrating you this evening, so I want to thank all of them for taking the opportunity to be here, and of course to your families for all the support they've given you. We appreciate having them here this evening as well. Mrs. Ceja Martinez, if I could, there are 3 of them that we'd ask, one from our certified, one from our administrator, and one from our classified group, if they could come and join us maybe to represent the group and can maybe answer any questions that you might have. So Dennis Hill, classified staff member. He's lead maintenance for us at Oakwood. From administration, Connie Whitty, if you'll come join me up here. And then certified and our teacher, Doris Lynn-Selim, if you would come on up and join us. And President Ceja Martinez, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. And we'll go ahead and start with Ms. Connect.
Excuse me. I offer my congratulations to all of you, but I'm really not happy about this because we know that you do bring so much, have brought so much over the years and fostered relationships with our kids and done great things. And so while I wish you well, it is bittersweet.
Thank you.
Mrs. Pangarelli?
Did you?
No, I'll wait.
Okay.
I'm patient.
Well, I just wanted to say congratulations also, and I am so envious of you guys. I would love to be retired right now. So congratulations.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, I think I guess, my fellow board members always say that I'm long-winded, but in a very short way. Thank you for certainly your commitment to the district. But I think one thing I'd like to say is, although you're retired, the impact that you've made on so many lives will continue forever. So thank you for that.
Welcome.
Ms. Stone?
Well, I'd like to, I've always thought that teaching is a calling, and I believe that you have proved it and stuck with it, and we are very appreciative, and I know that the children you taught are well, most of them are very appreciative, and I just want to thank you for your service to the community.
Thank you.
I echo my colleagues' comments, and it does take a village, and every part of you represent, and congratulations. I know I see familiar faces, and so thank you so much, and our sincere enjoy your time. I'm sure I'll see you back. I know Ms. Whitty accepted a position, so we'll see her back. But please, any comments, words of wisdom, we would love to hear. As we heard from National Board, there's a lot of self-reflection.
Well, I thought I was just invited here to be the only guy in the photo. Well, I want to thank everyone for having this nice reception. It's very nice. I work at Oakwood, and I've been there 7 years. I came with Mr. Duguid from Saguaro Ranch, and probably the best job I've ever had. I've only worked for the district 7 years. I worked for Wholesome Bakery for 36 before I came over here. But being a maintenance man, I got to know the district and the people that worked in the school system. Great people, super people. They care about the kids. And that probably is going to be the one thing I'm going to miss the most. Most of you don't know, but my nickname from the kids is Papa Smurf. Oh. And I'm going to miss that. Yeah. Those kids, every day, they try to talk me out of retiring. And it's sad to say, but I gotta quit working sometime. Got to go on some cruises and do some things. But they don't know what a cruise is, but anyway, I think the one reason my wife and me moved to Peoria was for the school system. My kids went to Peoria school. I can't think of it. Skyview. That's part of old age. Anyway, they went to Skyview, and the teachers were so good, and they saw that my one son had a deficiency in learning, and they put him in a special class, and he just blossomed, and he's almost the owner of a roofing company. So it was because of the school system is why they found he needed some help, and he got it. So anyway, I don't want to stay. I could stay up here all day, but anyway, it's the Dale Carnegie coming out of me. So anyway, thank you very much, and I'll enjoy my retirement.
That's great.
Short in stature. I represent the teachers, and what I would probably want to let you know, and I'm sure the other teachers would want you to know too, is one, how much we love the students, and that we will leave, but our hearts will stay with them. And that one wonderful thing about this district is the love. Academics certainly are stellar, what is taught here. But in the classrooms, the students feel safe and they feel loved. And you can't put a price on that. Thank you so much for the experience.
I'll be brief because, again, too, I think as you reflect, I have 26 years here in Peoria. The average being 30 with the group that's retiring this year is simply amazing and speaks highly. And the fact that many of them, as I was talking to a couple of my colleagues I used to work with, they're going to come back, sub, maybe do some stuff in between and stay connected because of the impact that they know we can have. I decided that I would volunteer, and then I thought, no, volunteering, I think I'll come back full time. And I'm not ready for the cruise yet, but I will be probably. Give me another 5-10 years, and then it'll be time. But I do believe exactly what was said, in that the passion and the connections, that's what makes people want to come back and continue to serve. So thank you for that opportunity, and thank you for the opportunity for those of us to kind of recycle and reboot ourselves in different ways. So thank you.
Okay, with that, we've wrapped up staff recognitions. On to board recognitions. Mrs. Connect.
Does Mrs. Palace Thompson have any?
I do. I can do
Oh,
a couple,
yes,
if
thank
that's
you.
okay.
Yes, please.
Good evening, Mrs. Sejas Martinez, and thank you, Mrs. Connect. First, congratulations to Lana Mohammed from Centennial High School. She was named a 2018 U.S. Presidential Scholar.
Amazing.
And there are only 161 of those in the nation who achieved this. It's pretty impressive, so congratulations. Peoria High School's MESA program recently placed second in the annual State MESA Day competition with 12 high school teams who qualified for state. Frontier Elementary, and I just saw my principal over there, celebrated their 20th anniversary with a special homecoming assembly and community barbecue on Monday, May 7th. Congratulations for celebrating 20 years of excellence. Thank you. And then we were recently notified that Peoria Unified received the Healthy Arizona Worksite Gold Award. And this award is given to us by the Maricopa County Department of Public Health, and it recognizes businesses who have established evidence-based work sites with health initiatives and promising practices. Very good news. So lots of good things happening.
All right, Ms. Connect.
That is good. That makes healthy, happy employees, and it costs us
Right.
less money in insurance.
That's
That's
right.
great. That's awesome. Oh, boy, there's a long list. Thank you for indulging me. First of all, Pride of Peoria happened since the last time we were together. That was phenomenal, recognizing the best of our employees, of administrators, and classified and certified. It was a beautiful night, so thank you, and to the PR department, thank you for putting on that fabulous event, really a feel-good event. I and some of my fellow board members had the opportunity to attend the NALEO conference. NALEO is the National Association of Latino Elected Officials, and they put on some of the best education seminar or conferences there are, and we got to learn about the Every Student Succeeds Act, early childhood developments in English language learning, and the evolution that's happening there. And also, they did a really good overview of the new A through F. And so every time we have an opportunity to revisit that and to sharpen our skills on that is really, really a phenomenal opportunity. We had the CTE Awards, which was great. Thank you, Dr. Beltram, for inviting us to share in that exciting night. Everybody got their little medals that they will wear at graduation. And what else? Oh, the last thing I wanted to say, and this is a little personal, so bear with me. My oldest daughter graduated from ASU this week. And she came up, she did a couple years in the Litchfield School District and then was here in the Peoria School District at Oakwood and Cactus. And so I just wanted to take a minute to thank all the teachers, all the staff members, administrators that had an influence in her life. She took advantage of many opportunities here in the Peoria School District. She was an athlete. She was in student council. She was in NHS. And she's turned into a bright, engaging young woman, and she's going to do great things. And I don't take credit for that. I take part credit. Her dad takes part credit. But all of the educators that had an opportunity to touch her life had something to do with that too. And I want to thank them all for their expertise and their professionalism and the love that they showed her and my family. So thank you.
Mrs. Pangarelli.
I just wanted to say congratulations to all the winners at Pride of Peoria. It was a pleasure being there that evening. So that's all I have this evening.
Mr. Sandoval.
Thank you. So yes, all the events and activities that have been mentioned thus far. When you take a look at Pride of Peoria, the CTE programs, our arts programs, our retirees, who we honored this evening. It's certainly this time of the year and all the graduations. It certainly makes all of us certainly proud. Of what we do to serve you by sitting on this board. But, for me, often when you're faced with adversity is, certainly where your true character comes out. And I think we've certainly faced some of that recently. And I think, I applaud the district, the teachers, staff, community who extended their passion and commitment for the success of this district and our students outside of the classroom, outside of those walls, in a very professional manner. So that said, I'm grateful, I'm proud, and just thank you to everybody in this entire district for what you do every day, and in a way that again, just inspires hope and to so many students. Just the impact that you've made. Over the years, inside and outside the classroom, is certainly unparalleled. So thank you for that.
Ms. Stone.
Well, I would like to say that I enjoyed the CTE Awards, and it was fun watching the kids afterwards as they were making shadow puppets on the wall and just generally being silly and relieved and happy. It was really nice. Thank you.
All right. So thank you, peers. I went down the checklist and I got all those. This is definitely the time of year where we start to celebrate all the hard work that has gone on, and this is a great board meeting to highlight all those. There's only two I wanted to add, which is the Special Olympics. Mr. Wooten invited all of us, and it was his third year hosting the Special Olympics for 16,000 students across the state. And we had staff and our students volunteering and families that were happy to participate at Raymond S. Kellis. And so thank you, everybody who volunteered, which segues into if you want to volunteer or you want to talk to your students, they are eager to want to do more for a community. And if you go onto the special ed website, there is a link to start setting up our volunteering. They have have a recess right now, and if you start signing up for the summertime for the future in the fall, it'd be a great opportunity for our students to participate. The other is I had an opportunity to visit Miss Pobletek. Proberetic, thank you. I wanted to see what ceramics National Board Certified teaching looked like, and I visited her ceramics class, and they hosted their first annual Empty Bowls event, and it was another opportunity to give back to the community. So when we talk about long-lasting impact, our students are impacting communities in all ways, and so thank you very much. Phenomenal. The kids were so eager to talk to me and tell me all the great things and show me the tools, so thank you for that. And with that, I don't believe we have any more recognitions today, and we will proceed with item number 6. 6.1, consideration of approval of revision number 3 to the expenditure budget, including maintenance and operations and district additional assistance, formerly capital outlay and unrestricted capital budgets for 2017-2018. Ms. Myers.
Thank you, President Seha Martinez, members of the Governing Board, Mrs. Pallas Thompson. I do not have any additional comments or information to add to the presentation for budget revision number 3 for the fiscal 2018 year that was presented during the public hearing.
Excellent, and this is what I was excited to get to, was I need a motion and a second to approve this budget.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and re-motion my, anyway, I move that we approve the revised budget number 3 as suggested by staff.
Okay, we have a first and second by Ms. Doan and second by Mr. Sandoval to approve the budget as presented. Thank you very much. Motion passes 5-0. Next to public comments, 7.1, request to address the governing board items not included on the agenda. And just to highlight, this is an opportunity to address the board, but we cannot respond as they're not on the agenda, and we need to comply with open meeting law. You will have 3 minutes. We would love to hear from everybody. So far, I have four sheets, and we'll start off first with Mr. Richard Kendall.
Thank you. On Tuesday, you approved a new district schedule, which now has the kids going till 4 o'clock. They come home tired, they're angry, they're frustrated because of the conduct of their teachers, who they used to trust. You are not done, because there will be another walkout before the election, since it's entirely a political operation in the first place. No teacher, nor any school board, has the authority to use other people's children for their tantrums, which is what this walkout was. I've been teaching for 44 years, 25 of which in public schools, a profession that I used to be proud of. That profession now has a permanent stain put on it by the unlawful conduct, not only of the teachers, but of the administration, which not only condoned it, but actively encouraged the walkout. If you didn't see the red papers around the schools and the administrators running around in red T-shirts advocating an illegal strike, then you weren't at the schools and you were not doing your jobs. This school board needs to step up. When you break the law, you have to pay the piper. And these teachers broke the law. By rights, they are no longer authorized to even have a teaching certificate. Students have the right to trust their teachers and to trust the board to protect them from the illegal conduct of their teachers and their administrators. And if you don't do something about it, it's too late to have a recall. We will see you in November. And we will remember what you did to our kids, and you did not have the authority to do it, neither did any of their teachers.
I appreciate you taking the time. Next, Ms. Julie Garrettson.
President Seha Martinez, members of the board, Mrs. Pallas Thompson. My name is Julie Garrettson, and I'm a proud but concerned Liberty and Sunset Heights parent. I am here to speak to you tonight because of what came from the bond committee this week. I am not a member of the committee, yet I have attended almost every meeting. I am disappointed that a new elementary school and a new high school will not be included in the bond committee recommendation to this board. Tuesday evening, they decided to include funding for an additional building at Liberty rather than to build a new high school. This building could increase Liberty's capacity by about 300 to 400 students. Not all that many in the whole scheme of things, considering there are approximately 2,200 students currently there. But the parking lot is currently an issue and would become even a bigger issue. Where would these additional students go during a football game? The bleachers are already packed. I didn't attend one varsity football game this school year for that reason. Some people have said that getting rid of out-of-district open enrollment would fix the overcrowding at Liberty. But that's only about 250 students. Have you driven from the Deer Valley and Lake Pleasant Parkway area all the way out through Vistancia recently and seen all of the houses going up? They will go to school somewhere, and our district must have room for them. Do we? Currently, each grade at Liberty has more students than the next. 496 seniors, 535 juniors, 574 sophomores, 624 freshmen, as of March 30th. I am anxious to find out how many will be in this incoming freshman class. I urge you to not go along with this building addition. It is not a viable solution and not a good Band-Aid. There is a better solution, and you must be proactive now. Funding a new high school is definitely needed sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Nancy Paganelli. Paganelli, my apologies.
This is all I have tonight. I am a substitute teacher. I've been in the district substituting for about 17 years. When I started substituting, I received $85 a day. The next year it went to $90. The next year it went back to $85 and remained at $85 the whole entire rest of the time until this year, which is fine for me because I happen to love doing what I do. However, during the strike, I lost 6 days of my work. 6 days to me is about $500. I didn't have a choice in that. I didn't support it. I didn't deny it. I just am a substitute teacher, period. As a matter of fact, I did see several of the teachers that I have subbed for in this room, and Mr. Sam over there went to school with my daughter in high school at Peoria High School. So I've been around this district for a long time. But today, when I got the notice last night that we are not going to receive any compensation as a substitute for the hour that you are adding on to school, I am being penalized for something I had nothing to do with, the teacher strike. I volunteer my time for 2 years. The last 2 years, I volunteered at Foothill School every 6th day. When I volunteer my time, I want to do it. Today, I was in a school where the children were gone the last hour. I sat for 1 hour of my time, which is pretty important to me, for nothing because I had to go and do an after-school duty. So, somebody, I don't even know who to go to, because today at the school, there was another sub who thought he might be here tonight. We don't know who to address this to. I have addressed the Arlene through the substitute system. I've addressed the ESI. Nobody gives me an answer of anything. I just don't think it is fair or right to make substitute teachers, of which you don't have enough, because I know I was at schools in the past where they don't even have enough subs for the people that are out, to penalize us as substitute teachers. And I do it because I want to do it, but I don't want to sit or waste my time with an extended hour because teachers struck, which was their right to do, but I don't want to get the penalty for it by not being paid for that hour that I have to serve. So somebody needs to address it. I don't know who. I don't know if it's you. I don't know if it's the administrators. I don't know. But I am one, and I'm speaking for myself, but there are other subs that are very upset about this too. So I would like to have somebody address it. Thank you.
I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. Ms. Pallas-Thompson?
Mr. Croto, could you follow up with that, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Jordan Gusadas? Please correct me on how to pronounce the last name.
Good evening, Madam President and board members. I apologize. I had to bring my daughter, our babysitter. I canceled last minute. She gets to learn about civic responsibility at the age of 2. Hello, my name is Jordan Casadillas. I am a nationally certified school psychologist. I currently work at Peoria High School in Peoria Flex Academy. I will not be returning to Peoria Unified School District next year. Before I leave, I want to bring forth a concern to the board because I deeply care about my students and my coworkers. I believe my concerns are not unique to me, and if addressed, will create a more positive workplace for the employees to better execute the district's mission statement. I'm worried about the ability of our current staffing model to provide optimal support to our most at-risk students. The National Association of School Psychologists recommends 1 school psychologist for every 1,000 students. Currently, I have 1,600 students between my 2 schools. As a school psychologist, I apply my expertise in mental health, learning, and behavior to help children succeed academically, socially, and emotionally. Working at a Title I school, on any given day, I may contact Child Protective Services, help an adult student enroll with access, coordinate housing for homeless students, call crisis for a suicidal student, find eyeglass prescriptions or hearing aid for students who cannot afford them, connect students to outside resources for addiction or mental health needs. I currently run a teen parent support group, work with students' probation officers, provide students with food bags. The list goes on. This is in addition to writing over 60 psychoeducational reports per year, attending IEP and MET meetings, testing and assessing students, and providing specifically designed instruction to my caseload of students. Even with the help of our indispensable behavior interventionists and our fabulous group of counselors, we simply do not have enough support to provide the needs for our campus. Next year, I'll be working for a district that abides by the 1,000 max student-to-psych ratio and employs social workers and community liaisons. Additionally, 3 psychs in our district who work at Title I schools currently will not be returning. Finding ways to provide additional support for the social, health, and emotional well-being of students will help to create a better working and an educational environment for all staff and students, and assist in PUSD's recruitment and retention of accomplished psychologists. One way to do this would be to hire social workers for the district. To start, I would suggest finding funds to employ social workers to cover the clusters of Title I schools and work up to 1 social worker per cluster, as suggested by 1 person on your board already. Money to fund social workers can come from the overall budget or an individual school's Title I funds. Board members, thank you for your time, and a big thank you to the wonderful coworkers and admin team that I work with at Peoria High School and Peoria Flex Academy. Every day you go above and beyond for our students, and I will truly miss working with all of you next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we have concluded public comment. Moving on to number 8, consent agenda item. Would any board members like to pull any item?
President Seah Martinez would like to pull 8.3, the Human Resources Report.
All right, any other items? With that, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda item excluding 8.3.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 8.3.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Pengarelli to approve the consent agenda item excluding 8.3, a second by Mr. Sandoval. There we go. Excellent. Motion passes 5-0. And referring back to 8.3, the Human Resources Report, Mr. Sandoval?
Thank you. So as one of the items that, I've always been sensitive to is our liquidated damages. So I don't know if Dr. Davidson could step up to the podium if that's appropriate. I just have a question on the couple items there. So, Dr. Davidson, my question is, if you take a look at the top 2 categories, the top one being no assessment, the second category being assess the liquidated damages. But when I take a look at the individuals and positions, they seem to be pretty equal in that regard. So, can you just kind of talk about that and why liquidated damage were assessed to some individuals but not the others, although their positions and even locations are pretty equal?
President Martinez and Mr. Sandoval, members of the board, and Ms. Pallas Thompson. Mr. Sandoval, are you referring to the administrative staff, the 2 groups there at the top of the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Okay. From the first 2 individuals over at Centennial and the District Office Administrative Center, those 2 individuals did not sign their contract for next school year. Therefore, by choosing to leave, they were not assessed liquidated damages versus the other 2. One left in April, as you know, and the other is going to be leaving us, but they did have contracts that they were signed and under at that time.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's the only question I had on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions about 8.3? Okay, I need a motion for 8.3.
Motion to approve 8.3 Human Resources Report.
I second that. We have a motion by Mr. Sandoval to approve 8.3. Voice vote? Okay, yes. Approve 8.3 and a second by myself. We're going to do a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Moving right along here. Agenda item 9.1. Address and consider adoption of recommended changes. There are any items that would like to be repositioned by the governing board? Okay. And it stands, so we'll proceed with 10.1. Consideration of recommendation for the administrative appointments for 2018-2019 school year. Dr. Carter Davidson.
All right. Good evening again, and thanks for bringing me back. President Seah Martinez, members of the board, Ms. Pallas Thompson. We've been very busy in human resources. As you know, I seem to be up here often. talking to and asking for your support of our administrative appointments. So before I go into them, certainly I'd like for, if you were comfortable with our recommendations, perhaps having a motion and a vote, so that way we could, if are so lucky tonight, to recommend and highlight 3 individuals that I'd like to bring to you.
I move to approve the recommendation for administrative appointments 2018-2019.
Second.
We have a motion by myself and a second by Mr. Sandoval. Would you like us to continue with the voice vote? Okay. All right. Motion passes 5-0.
All right. Thank you, and just a wonderful opportunity. As you know, tonight we celebrated those that are retiring and have dedicated many years of service to our district, and tonight I bring to you 3 individuals that have done the same, but they still have a lot of work life in them, and we're really excited to see what they bring to the table in their new position. So I'm going to start this evening with the recommendation that Ms. Marla Hobbs be appointed to the position of Executive Director of Curriculum and Professional Development for our school district. Ms. Hobbs currently works as principal of Marshall Ranch Elementary School and has done so since 2012. Marla has also served in the roles of assistant principal and teacher within our school district since 1996. Along with a vast amount of experience at the elementary and high school levels, Ms. Hobbs has also excelled in educating herself. She has earned a master's degree in educational leadership from NAU and a bachelor's degree in music education from Grand Canyon University. So if we can give a round of applause to Ms. Marla Hobbs. Ms. Hobbs is joined here tonight by her husband, and I believe her son as well as some of her staff members. So thank you for joining her tonight. Marla, the floor is yours.
Good evening.
Good evening. Congratulations.
Very much.
Is there anything you would like to start off, and then we'll have the board?
President Ceja Martinez, members of the board, Mrs. Pallas Thompson, council. This is an incredible opportunity that I don't go into lightly. I'm very excited for this opportunity to serve our teachers and serve our students. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
All right. We'll start with board comment. Ms. Connect? Congratulations. Ms. Pingrelli?
Congratulations also.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, congratulations, and again, the long-winded one, sorry. So I have had the opportunity to sit down and talk with you a little bit, and I think for me, when you take a look at advancements throughout career and even hiring new hires, it's the academic side of it is important, absolutely. However, the other side is values and character, and sitting across the table from you, you truly exude professionalism, and again, commitment. And you're of great character and high values, so I'm excited for you and the district and our students, teachers, and staff to have you in this role. So congratulations.
Ms. Doan?
Well, congratulations.
Ms. Hobbs, another opportunity to serve you in a different light. I had the privilege, as you know, at Marshall Ranch, and so thank you, and please, again, reach out if there's anything we can look into to continue to support your efforts.
Thank you very much.
All right, next I'd like to highlight Mr. John Croto this evening to be appointed to the position of Chief Operations Safety and Risk Management Officer for the 18-19 school year. Mr. Croto currently serves as Executive Director of Secondary Education and was once Principal of Liberty High School. Prior to coming to Peoria Unified, Mr. Croto served in numerous roles within the Glendale Union High School District, to include an Associate Superintendent role for Curriculum and Instruction. Mr. Croto has both bachelor's and master's degrees and is in pursuit of his doctorate degree to be completed by May of 2019. So, Mr. Croto, why don't you come on up, and congratulations, sir.
President Ceja Martinez, members of the board, council, and guests, thank you. I'm humbled by the position. I'm looking forward. We have a lot of work to do, obviously, and I'm looking forward to the opportunities and looking forward to getting to work with, the Challenger Center and safety and all the things that read in the job. It's a big job. We have some awesome people working for us, and I'm just excited to have the opportunity to in the new role. So thank you very much.
Ms. Connect?
Congratulations.
Ms. Pangarelli?
Excuse me, congratulations also.
Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
Mr. Croto, congratulations. It's your career in PUSD has seen advancement, rapid advancement over the last, certainly a few years. So I would say this, recognized and well-deserved, so congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Doan?
Oh, so this is a new position. Can you tell me what it is? Exactly.
Exactly. Well, we'll be here for a while. It might be longer. It is Chief Operations Officer. You heard safety and you heard risk management in there. So
Right.
basically, the job entails all the maintenance of our district, which is quite a big task. And that includes transportation in there. That also includes food service. It also includes working with the safety aspect to make sure our schools are safe, that we have plans in action, that the facilities are safe, and that we're actually carrying out the things that we say we are in the safety plan. So that's a big piece, and also risk management to make sure our campuses are safe for our employees, our kids, our community, and that we're doing the necessary things. And that's also in technology nowadays with cyber warfare and all those kind of things. So we have some great people to work with, and to do all that, it's a big task, but we're looking forward to doing that. So hopefully that answered your question.
Will you be working with our resource officers?
I will. Yes, on safety,
I
absolutely.
just, that's a big issue, now to the risk management, the safety of our staff and students. And so I wanted a little explanation out there. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Croto, definitely the right man for the job. And the fact that as a district, we're charging you to lead that's phenomenal. And the community has said that we wanted safety to be a priority, and you're definitely going to lead that. Now I know where to send all my emails.
Thank you. I look forward to that. It's July 1st, right? Just kidding.
Thank you, and enjoy.
Okay.
Please let us know again how we can continue to support you.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
All right, and last but not least, we'd also like to recommend Ms. Anita Gomez this evening to be appointed to the position of Director of Federal Programs and Student Support. Ms. Gomez currently works as Test Coordinator and Research Analyst and has done so since July for us here in Peoria. Prior to rejoining the district, Ms. Gomez served as Principal and Assistant Principal in Fountain Hills Unified School District. Anita has also served in the roles of Educational Specialist and Teacher within Peoria Unified starting in 1990. Along with a vast amount of professional experience, Ms. Gomez has also demonstrated strength as a student. She earned a bachelor's and master's degrees in education from Arizona State University and has numerous hours of study in mathematics, science, and school administration. So welcome, Ms. Gomez, and I think you are also here by yourself, correct? Turning this way. All right, Anita, welcome.
Let's switch it up. Ms. Doan.
Well, I'm going to ask you the same question. This is Director of Federal Programs and Student Support. That seems very broad, and it sounds like a very big job. Can you boil it down in layman's terms as to what that means for our students and staff?
President Ceja Martinez, board members, our superintendent, Mrs. Pallas Thompson. The job is huge, and I'm excited. That's my favorite part, actually, covering the specifics of our title programs, Title I, II, well, supporting our EL students, our gifted students, and our homeless students. So I will be helping principals and our district office manage all the grants and the
making sure that compliance paperwork is done properly and deadlines are met, and that the principals have support in making their choices and how they spend their money, and do that properly so that we follow our federal guidelines. I think I'm ready for this. This past year, I've worked with Wendy Davey and now with Mike Moss in research planning and assessment, which is like a math and statistical CrossFit 8-hour session every day of looking at numbers and data and making sure your spreadsheets are doing the right things. And this just seemed like a great opportunity to take that to the next level with a lot of branches of parts of things that take care of students. And I miss being around students. I'm very, very far from them in this role, but I still feel like I'm doing my part supporting the principals that will help make those projects that get materials to teachers at our Title I schools and students who need them. So I feel like I'm way in the back. I'm behind the curtain.
Well, thank you so much, and
thank you.
Congratulations.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, congratulations, and I agree. This is a big role as it relates to our district, especially when you take a look at our mantra of every student every day. And every site has a story, and our Title I schools and every student every day means just that, ensuring that we put all of our students in a position to be successful. So there's a saying that reads, every one of our students are one, caring adult away from being a success story. So I'm looking forward to you leading all of the caring adults that we have throughout this district to just inspiring hope to the 37,000 plus. So congratulations.
Ms. Pingrelli?
Well done.
Ms. Connect?
Is it on? I had the privilege of meeting Ms. Gomez at the Equity Conference, and I think that was great information to gather for your new role, ensuring that every kid has a fair and equitable opportunity to meet his or her potential. So it was great getting to know you, and I wish you great congratulations.
Very much.
Thank you. All right, with that, we are moving on to 10.2, the evaluation process for digital tools. And I have Dr. Kendra Bell.
Good evening. Mike Moss and I are delighted to be here this evening to talk with you about this agenda item. It feels like it's been a long time coming. When I was hired into PUSD as the Chief Academic Officer, I entered into a state of exploration of digital tools. There were some opportunities I saw across the district, as well as some challenges. I want to talk about that before we get into our evaluation process that's gone on the entire school year and a little bit last year. This year, we had almost 40 different digital pilots across our school system. Kristen Vandewater, John Gay and his team, and I began to talk about how in the world we were going to manage this because of the pressure on the system, not only with student data, but also the curriculum challenges, the professional development challenges that came along with this level of exploration. But explore we did. Teachers began using all kinds of these pilots or digital tools in classrooms. They began trying different instructional methods for personalized learning. Some of you went on some of those tours. So we began to see a shift and some excitement, which was a good thing from the digital pilots. The challenges were associated with management, curriculum alignment. Do they align to the state standards, which is what we want our students to know and be able to do? Because some of our pilots were free, there was limited professional development. That unfortunately resulted in kind of shaky implementations in some cases. Again, we were encouraged to explore, give it a try new things in classroom, take some risks, so the implementation was not necessarily done with fidelity from school to school, from classroom to classroom throughout this exploration process. We knew all school year that we were going to need to narrow our focus and make some decisions associated with digital tools. So we appreciate the opportunity to talk about not only the onset of this, how we entered into it, but with Mike Moss, Anita, some of that research team, certainly Kristen Vandewater and our curriculum content coaches, the effort that it took for us to evaluate a number of different digital tools, not only for curriculum alignment, but whether or not they actually worked with our kids. So Mike Moss is with me tonight to talk about both quantitative and qualitative research approaches so that we were able to make some good decisions for our kids. Mike?
Ms. Seja Martinez, member of the governing board, Ms. Pallas Thompson, it seems that deja vu all over again, and I'll explain that to you if you need me to later on. I've done this before. I just got to remember how. I don't know how to run this. Oh, there we go. When we started in the last 5 years, since I've been gone from Peoria, I did a couple different things. First, I worked with ASU in a grant, and then I played bad golf for a year and a half and decided I had to come back to go to work. And when I was lucky enough to be put in this, the first project they gave me was which products or how many products, or should we even buy a product that is going to help our students. And so I was able to apply some of the information that I learned at ASU to developing a process of using multiple data sources and multiple types of data to be able to make a determination and to give to the decision makers and say, look at this information, triangulate the data yourselves, and be able to come up with the best decision for our students. And so we started out, and I learned, again, through the process at ASU, what kind of things we want to look at. And first of all, we want to look at multiple data sets in terms of demographic data. We want to look at perception data. What do people think is happening? We want to talk about implementation. How well do we do? And then we also want to look at results. How well do our students do if we put this in place? Finally, those four fit together with our financial and operational goals and constraints, and then you come up with a decision that's based upon that information all being together. Okay, so I'll give you some examples. When we did the data, the demographic data, we looked at 18 different programs. We looked at 7 different grade levels, and we looked at the number of teachers with access to these products. We looked at how many students were served by each of these products, and we were able to divide the district and take a look not only what was happening in our Title I schools, but also our non-Title I schools, and see if there was a comparative difference between the two. We had some products, for example, that had 212 teachers using that one product. We had some products that was only one teacher using that product. And being able to decide, is that a fair comparison between those two, was some of the challenges we had and some of the conversations we had with Wendy Davey, who's now gone to the state to help them do some of those things. We had students, 8,581 students used one program. I had one that was used by 71 students, some by 26. Is that a fair comparison between those two? How do we make those decisions and provide that information to the team? The next step we took was to look at perception data. And the perception data, we do a survey every year, the annual student and parent and staff survey. And luckily, we thought ahead a little bit, and we built in some questions that gave us feedback on some of the information that was coming out of this process. For example, in the families, we asked the families, were they ready to use digital products? In our case, we had 87% of parents reply that they agreed or strongly agreed with the statement that we should use digital products in the classroom. We asked them if they should have access to these products at home. We had over 90% that agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. So we got positive feedback from parents that says, yes, we should move forward with this products. We asked students the same thing. Of course, students, we didn't ask them if we should use them. We asked them what kind of things they would provide for us. And they said, well, the things that they do for them are they increase engagement, they increase my learning, they increase my motivation, and they let me look at my own data and see how I'm doing and progress at my own speed. So those were things that we took into consideration because those were things that were important to the kids. We looked at our staff surveys, and we asked teachers, tell me, what do you think about using these products? We had 97% who told us they were either essential or necessary to education in the current times. We asked administrators the same processes, and they told us 94%, again, necessary or essential in the usage of education as we go through the process. So it looked at and gave us some positives about what was happening and whether people thought they were important and whether kids thought they were valuable to them. Finally, we took this back, and before we made any decision, we took this back to the principals, not one time, but twice, because we wanted to get them involved and really tell us what's happening really in the field. And the first time they told us, they made a list of non-negotiables. Non-negotiables meaning we have to have this, we have to have this, we have to have this. The second time, after kind of some decisions were made and we narrowed the focus, we took back to them, and they said, okay, those will work for us, but we can't have changes in policy. We have to have scheduling, for example, that matches what we're able to use it. We had to have some technology that we're able to use this and put in that process. So that becomes a bigger picture than just what we're doing with this digital program. It becomes more of a how do we implement it and implement it with fidelity as we move forward. We looked at implementation data. Okay? And in each of these, when we looked at each of the processes, there was a checklist developed, 10 criteria. Okay? And we had our content specialists, our instructional coaches, we had some, Ms. Vanderwater and her group looked at it, and they filled out these forms, these checklists for each of the products that were there. And some of the questions on there, for example, are, is this product research-based? Yes or no? Is the product aligned to our curriculum? Okay? Does it have the ability to personalize for each student? And they were given a yes or no answer back and forth from each of those questions. And then they came to me and they came to Mr. Gay and said, how does this fit with our data needs? And how does this fit with our technology processes that we use? Is it easy to get all the kids loaded into it? How are those things processed? So there was a set of criteria that were used for each of the process, each of the platforms. They then went on observations, walking around to classrooms, knowing that, for example, iReady was being used at Kachina, that they went and they walked through classrooms and they saw how teachers were using it. And again, they had a rubric that they went down the list and said, how were they using it? Good, bad, positive, 1, 2, 3, 4s. And they had about 10 or 12 different criteria that they used for each of those. And there were over 218 different times that they went in and brought that data back to us where we could line up and say, this is what we've seen all the way along throughout the school district, throughout the schools on, again, I think we used 17 or 18 different products that they had examples on. Okay? The final piece is probably the hardest part that the curriculum coaches and instructional people really had to help us with, and that was we had to, in order to separate who had not just access to the program, but who actually used the program with fidelity. And so we had to ask them to go through and take a look at the amount of time that each teacher used each product, and then we classified them in terms of how much they had used each of their product. You can see there it says if there's a 3, we determined that to be with fidelity. Sometimes that was a little bit tricky because one manufacturer said, or one product said you had to use it 2 hours a week. Another one said you had to use it 45 minutes a day. Another one said to have to use it 2 hours a week if you're on grade level. Another one said you had to use it 4 hours a week if you were below grade level. So we had to take some professional judgment looking at how much it was used and determine whether each teacher had used it with fidelity, partial implementation, or no usage. And that gave us then the opportunity to distinguish between kids who had access but didn't necessarily use it, or teachers who didn't use it for instruction or didn't use it for instruction with fidelity. Okay? And finally, we began to look at the results. And I'll give you the examples of the tests. As we look at the test, we looked at 9th graders, high school Algebra 1 block classes. We used the district course assessment and the AZ merit test. We looked in the post-test in the grade 3 through 8 comprehensive, which was given in and that's why I don't want you to, when you see the numbers, I don't want you to panic and think that's what we get on the score, but these tests were given at the end of January and February, so it's kind of the middle of the year test compared to where, and a predictor of where they're going to be on the AZ merit scores. We did that in English language arts and mathematics, and all of these tests are secure tests that were not teacher developed. They were test developed either through the curriculum department and given online, so the teachers didn't have the preview of what was coming. We did a simple statistical method, mean comparison based upon subject and demographics. We used an analysis of variance that gave us then what we call the connected letters report, and I will show that to you real quickly and give a brief explanation. What it really tells us is these two populations, if they have a different letter, are different than one another. It's not a statistical anomaly that makes them look different, even though they are not. Statistical significance is the key word there. So when we got all this information, we had to really have two questions, or a question and then a kind of a step forward. And the first question says, is there statistical significance increase in the average score on district-based assessments when students use a digital product? Yes or no? Does it help us or doesn't it? Okay? And once we decide that, then if there is an increase on the average score, then which product should be chosen, and how does it match the needs, the overall needs of our students and staff, and again, fit within those financial and operational constraints that we talked about before. So, results. The first little box there you see says English language arts, all grade levels combined. This is every student who used a product based upon the usage of their teacher. For example, the threes, there were 4,685 students who took the test in a classroom that we determined to be with fidelity, and you see their average or their mean score was 45.23538, whatever that number is, right? We had 4,963 who were classrooms that had a 1, in other words, their teacher had access but never used it. Their mean score was 41.274, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So it basically shows that right away you can see that the mean score 41 to 43 to 45, that there was a difference in what students were scoring on the ELA tests. The connected letters process says, are those two populations different from each other statistically? And if you get a letter that says A, B, or C, and they're not the same, then essentially it says that these two are statistically significant from each other. So in other words, the A is not the same population as the B, is not the same population as the C on a statistical basis. Okay? In other words, in English language arts, it does appear then that those access to a product and with fidelity does create a greater or a higher mean score for students across the district in all grade levels.
Let me just ask, make sure I understand all that statement is, after looking at all the students in that bucket, you grouped like students' backgrounds?
Not yet.
Okay.
That is all students that take the test. Mm-hmm. So that is essentially Title I, non-Title I, Country Meadows to wherever, all compared to each other. That's all of them together in the process. I have a whole bunch more statistics, and I will go through in the process of, we did this similar thing with Title I and non-Title I, separated them out. Our results were similar, very similar. We took them and we said, do third graders, third, fourth, and fifth graders together. How were their scores? Our scores were similar. Sixth, seventh, and eighth graders, our scores were similar. This is just one of the probably 40 different tests we ran to determine whether it was successful or not successful all the way around.
Thank you.
Mathematics is the same way. Okay, you can see the numbers there, the number of students, 3s and 2s and 1s. And again, this is elementary all combined, A, B, and C, 45, 42, and 38. And again, we come to the same conclusion. Is it helping our students? We believe that it is across all grade levels. I'm going to bring your attention to the end counts because I think the end counts are important, and I'll explain to you why when we hit the next button here. When I start talking about the algebra, high school algebra, it appears that our students do score better, and while my program takes it into consideration, based upon the difference in the end count. If you notice the end count of the 3s, that number is only 26. I only had one teacher who used with fidelity across the district. While my system will take into account the smaller numbers between the 26 and the 496 and the 477, it does lead a little bit of a different conclusion, because we're not able to say it is all about the process, all about the program. It may be about the strength of the teacher much more than the strength of the program that really got these results. And so when we looked at that, it was another consideration we made. What's the end count of students? What's the end count of parents, of staff that go through this, so that when we start drawing conclusions, we don't want to draw conclusions on a group of 71, for example, when there was only one teacher teaching that. In this case, 26, we don't want to say this is completely beneficial to that, attributed to that program, because it may have been the teacher's efforts. And you see, though, it is consistent from high school course assessment and AZ Merit. We do have that one group that is much higher than the others. And the other part of that is I can give you there's connected letters. The Bs are essentially equal and are not different, are not statistically different from each other, even though they do have a little bit of a different mean score. The 69 and the 67, statistically, we say are the same. Okay? We took that information and I compiled it all into a bunch of different reports, gave them to the Curriculum and Instruction Department, and talked about all the different things, the same basically conversations we had here, and said, here are your pieces of information. You can choose which one you think is best, again, depending upon whatever their criteria, financial constraints work with. Yeah, questions before I, thank you. And
Any questions with all the data? Nothing?
Well, I do have two questions that came up while you were speaking, and you may address them, I don't know, as we move forward. But did we have adequate technology and hardware to reach that fidelity that you were talking about in every instance, or was that a shortcoming?
Yes and no. The reason I say that is, remember, this was an exploration effort, for lack of a better word. So it was up to the teachers to decide how long the kids were on the product or not. That's why this process was a little bit different for me, in that we weren't really comparing apples to apples, and we had to make a judgment associated with fidelity. The judgment we made in our research had everything to do with what the company said was fidelity and the time the kids were on the system. We did not assess how much technology is at the school, was not a factor in our evaluation. It's a good question, though. I know personally we've had, because of the testing, that there are some schools that struggle a little bit more with completing online testing, and they need a longer window because they need a few more devices.
Right. So I just wondered if we had adequate number of devices to ensure that teachers who wanted to use the products with fidelity had that opportunity, so.
Yeah, and we'll look at those 2 schools or so as we enter into this implementation.
Okay, and my second question is a year enough to adequately evaluate these programs?
Yes and no. One of the things is, this was very difficult. This is not a typical approach that we would see in a school district in terms of implementation. Typically, you would establish goals and objectives for a pilot. There would be an effort so that everyone who is piloting is implementing with fidelity, and there's a lot tighter implementation for us to look at what products work and what products don't work. Most of the products that rose to the top are very intuitive products, so they're able to level kids, assess kids by grade level in content, and develop individualized plans, if you will. So the ones that rose to the top were A, I think, more effective than others, and B, certainly got better results from our evaluation of that.
Thank you.
I do have two questions as well. It's all in regards to feedback. We have been working diligently of getting our staff feedback and our community feedback. So you highlighted two statistics with data with parents, 87% that you obtained liked the programs or you received feedback. Can you clarify that statement, and what's the sample size on that? And then another statistic you mentioned, it was 90%. I wanted to know what the sample size was that on the.
President Marcia Martinez and the governing board, the sample size for the surveys was 3,600, about 3,650 parents we had take the survey district-wide.
That's phenomenal feedback. Thank you. And do you know if that was wide? Was there one particular area that responded, north, south, west, east, Title I schools, non-Title I schools, or was all of it?
We have access and we keep track of it by schools, and in fact, we do a little bit of cajoling to our principals to make sure that we are equally represented across the district. And I would say there may be one or two who had numbers in the 40s or 50s, but most were above 100 or in those areas, in those numbers.
Excellent, thank you. And then one more about the teacher feedback. Did you get all grade levels represented? Were there any outliers, any red flags that you had to dismiss any data from that statistic?
The only place that we did had to take some out, the questions themselves were consistent across. We had, and I'm reluctant to go through the process, but I would say we're probably about 60% of all staff members filled out the information. We did have two schools. When we do this by providing them a link to a SurveyMonkey process. We did have two schools that gave the staff survey link to students. Okay, and we ended up with 220 from one school when they only have 60 staff members. And so we began to look at and come up with a pattern in terms of who we could eliminate, and we eliminated those from both of those schools to get accurate numbers in terms of what was there. Other than that, it was well represented across the district.
Thank you very much.
So the only question I have is, going back, I think it was one of the metrics that Ms. Ceja Martinez mentioned. It was the 90% technology obtainment. That was of our families. We're saying 90% of our families said, you know what, we have adequate technology in the home. Is that correct?
No, the actual question said was, is it important to you that your child has access to learning tools at home? And we had 90% of the parents say agree or strongly agree that they should have access to learning tools at home, which is one of the processes that we used in choosing the programs.
Gotcha. Okay.
At some point, that data point I would love to see, so if you can just send it to the board. The question that he just asked about the 90% agree that they want the program to be used at home.
Okay.
I would love to have that data point, just so I can see the breakdown of those statistics.
Okay.
Thank you.
I can do that.
Good question.
Okay. So it was kind of, it came down to decision time. If you'll remember in January at our retreat, we took a pretty hard look at some of our reading data, particularly at the elementary level, but we also noted that reading or ELA was a bigger concern for us in relationship to our student data compared to mathematics. Additionally, we talked about the last adoption being well over 10 years old, and resources for teachers and students in those classrooms. So I began to take a pretty closer look at reading with our teams, with principals, and with our coaches, teachers, etc. So the first decision we made was to move away from Dibbles as a basic screener into the iReady diagnostic tool. It is an online intuitive tool. It is ADE approved through Move On When Reading, and we basically substituted the $60,000 we were paying for Dibbles We're going to stop doing that, and we moved the $60,000 purchase into the iReady diagnostic tool. Because it is intuitive, it will level the kids' reading, gives them a Lexile or grade level reading, and then it creates a path for them to move through and essentially fill the holes or reading gaps of that particular student. This is available to us now in not just K3, but K8. We purchased it initially as a diagnostic tool. We trained our kindergarten through third grade teachers. We had our administration there. They could see the backdrop of instructional lesson plans, small group instruction. The system groups kids based upon gaps in their reading knowledge. And there was an immediate conversation about, wow, we should consider buying the instructional component of iReady to go with the diagnostic. That's exactly what we did based upon our student data. So we have the diagnostic as required for K3. Our whole system, K8, will have the diagnostic, even through students in grades 4 through 8. For them to utilize the instructional program behind that diagnostic, even every K through 8 student has to begin with the diagnostic. So we're excited about that level of assessment for kids reading and what's missing in terms of their knowledge. It will also provide our teachers much needed instructional materials without going through a huge comprehensive adoption. That's why before we begin this particular implementation, we'll have those very specific goals and objectives. We'll be measuring our implementation with fidelity. We will be working with our research department so that we can continue to make sure that if in fact we're spending this money, how are we doing? How is the system working for our kids? And how are we making sure that it's implemented well with the correct amount of professional development? The last 3 days of this school year, May 29th, 30th, and 31st, we will be providing a comprehensive professional development plan for teachers who are teaching the students in grades 4 through 8. This will allow us to begin the next year with a lot of that training in place and allow us to focus our attention on new and beginning teachers to PUSD with this particular implementation. If you remember, I talked about, and I think Ken talked about it as well, a typical implementation for this size of a school district for a K-8 reading would be about $3 million, possibly $4 million. They are so comprehensive. Again, we substituted the $60,000 from Dibbles for this diagnostic tool, and we bought the backdrop, including the professional development plan, which is rigorous. We don't want to do this without that fidelity piece and support. So for all of K-8, we purchased a total of $388,000 for this tool. It does not, I'm looking very carefully with our team at what it provides for phonics in grades K through 3. We also talked about that. We're also looking very carefully at how it develops language for ELL students, not only in primary grades, but in grades 4 through 8. So we're doing some more research on that, the use of iReady for those student populations. Additionally, this board asked me about reading staff development. We have a very big effort accompanied with the iReady program in teaching reading effectively with ADE. We are sending Title I teachers to ADE for that training. We are also having July and September opportunities. It is an intensive, I think, almost week-long training for teaching reading effectively, and we're very focused on our K-3 teachers. Okay, high school programming. Because we were still very focused.
Do you mind if we just pause real quick since you're going to switch to high school?
Okay.
For elementary, does anybody have any questions for elementary?
I do. So I think you said, but I'm not sure, this program does incorporate phonics instruction?
I'm looking at how much it does in terms of that K-3 and what those resources are. I think we need some print resources for teachers, separate and apart from a digital tool. We're looking to see if there's, I don't want to say holes, but I want to say, what do we need to get that solid phonics at K-3 for teachers that we've been talking with them about? And how do we fill that in for them with the use of iReady?
Well, it seems to me that learning phonics would be something that would be accommodated digitally pretty easily. But that segues into my next question is, does this digital product help foster a love of reading books as well?
Yes, that's that whole backdrop that I'm talking about with the instructional resources are all print-rich in literature and informational text. This is a tool that is aligned to Arizona state standards for kids to make sure they know how to deconstruct that text in narrative form and that informational text form. The phonics is there. I'm a little on the old school side in terms of, do teachers need other print-rich reading resources in K-3 for station rotations, for small group instruction, et cetera?
So I understand that the digital platform will help kids learn the mechanics of reading. My question is that going to lead to a teacher being able to say, here's a copy of Charlotte's Web. Go and get into it and love it.
We have to.
We have to. And I'm wondering,
We have to. That's the concern with our relatively lower scores in reading associated or compared with mathematics.
Because if
we
it's
have a
just
lot of work to do.
if it's just mechanics, we won't foster that love
Right.
of reading. Right.
We agree.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Ms. Pingarelli? Mr. Sandoval?
My only question, and I think it's a pretty clear answer, but because it's technology driven, the ability to realize frequent, tangible, complete data, and we talk about continuous improvement, to make adaptations, with the student or even a system for that matter, is realized via iReady. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Doan?
So you don't have yet the a comparison of how much time the children will spend on the program and how much time they will spend with print?
Not yet. We do in our district, we implement a 90-minute literature block. There's several things that occur during that block to promote the teaching of reading. The TRE training really reinforces that in terms of the teacher's approach to word work, writing, reading comprehension, word attack skills, etc. So combined with the digital tool, we're hopeful that we can build that 90-minute lit block to be a lot more effective for our kids and give teachers resources.
Are they probably working in small groups, some with the data and some with print and some with?
Absolutely.
All right. I've seen some of that and it seems to work.
Excellent. And I have a question in regards to the assessment. We are in a culture of data-driven results, and time is of the essence. So my question relates to iReady assessment and comparing it to what we are currently using in DIBELS. I understand that the state has vetted the iReady program, but the amount of time it takes to give a DIBELS is time-consuming. Can you tell me how much time we'll be saving by doing the iReady? And then the second question is the accuracy. The DIBELS scores give a specific data point, when we retrieve the same information from the iReady, are they comparable that we can say a child is reading at a certain level?
Yes, this is more of a diagnostic tool that tells a teacher and the student what they need to work on for in the assessment of reading. Will it save time? Yes. I can't tell you how much time, but I know it's saving us time and money. The reason for that is we have struggled in the district, in a district our size, in finding DIBELS assessors that we actually send out and help support testing kids over a significant period of time, and then we pay them to do that. So having a digital tool that kids can access is going to be a time saver for us and give us right now information. Those reports are what we will be pulling to look at, not only individual but school reports, so that we can constantly check our implementation process.
Excellent. I'm a doubler as well, so.
Mrs. San Martinez,
Yes.
just a couple of things that my colleagues' questions made me think about. One is that I'm aware that one of the trends that we're going to see in education in the next generation is utilizing gaming. And since this is a digital platform, I'm wondering, does this involve games for the kids to play?
Yes, it does.
Good, so that would be fun, because kids are wired to do that, and right? They could challenge themselves and they set goals for themselves, and that's good. And so my next question would be, at some point, can we have a demonstration?
I would love that. Absolutely.
Excellent. In the January strategic planning, I believe it was pretty unanimous, the governing board asked for professional development from our teachers as we move forward, and we craft our professional development. I would love to see a pre-post survey for our teachers, just as an informational as we move forward, so thank you.
I'd like to talk a little bit about our high school programming. We worked pretty hard on this, and there was a lot of different rationale behind this. We move forward with the purchase of Read 180 and System 44. Read 180 is not a new product for Peoria Unified Schools. However, we did have it in middle school, and our data reflected that it was just simply not very effective. We upgraded the Read 180 and purchased also the System 44, and we are implementing Read 180 and System 44 at all high schools next year with a specific targeted group in grade 9. Read 180 includes embedded ELL support, ample exposure and instruction to grade level text standards, and writing instruction. System 44 is a new component for us. It is a Scholastic product as well. It is attached to Read 180. System 44 assists students who need decoding and phonics skills instruction at 9th grade. So we know through a huge effort that we just entered into, thanks to Cindy Moss and Debbie LeBlanc and the other curriculum content coaches, we assessed every 8th grader in terms of their reading levels. The reason for this is we do not want to misplace students if they have a reading problem in Read 180 when they belong in System 44, et cetera. So we took a comprehensive approach to this implementation. We started first with students and their reading data. We have qualifying standards and working with the company around what those qualifying standards are for each of the high schools, and are working with them and with their counselors to place our students so that we can begin to fill those gaps and build reading skills quickly in 9th grade students who have determined they need that. Again, we've had Read 180 in the past. It wasn't necessarily a completely new expenditure. We shifted away from middle school, but for one section, into the high school. Our current commitment for Read 180 System 44 is around $300,000. That's not much different than what we've had in the past. We're reallocating that money. We are paying more attention to the implementation of this, and we've made a decision collectively that we are going to get the teachers on-site help through not only professional development, but from a Read 180 coordinator who can be in classrooms, help with students, address student placement issues, etc. Finally, that brings us to Edgenuity. We found out in working with our high school principals that for summer school, everyone was doing their own thing. They would bring teachers in, some would purchase a digital product over here, others would purchase a different digital product over here, and we knew that summer school was not getting us where we wanted to be, particularly in terms of credit recovery. We began to work with a teacher leader who has been helping us with the implementation of summer school and credit recovery at the high school, as well as the high school principals. We began to look at digital tools that offered credit recovery and began to talk about, well, wouldn't it make better sense if we were all in this together? Number one, to get the price point, but number two, to have better consistency from school to school in our credit recovery efforts and professional development training for teachers. We made a decision to move forward with Edgenuity. This is a 6-12 package for courses in middle school and high school. We decided to begin at each high school not with hiring all the content teachers to come in, but offering students seat time to come into a lab setting, go into Edgenuity for the course that they need credit recovery for, and have certified staff present and available to help the kids work through the program. Additionally, Edgenuity, like the others I've talked about tonight, can be accessed at home. So credit recovery becomes a longer opportunity for kids when they go home and stay on the program. The high school principals, with their teachers, decided that we wanted the on-site opportunity at least half the time for kids as we move into a consistent digital product for them to utilize for credit recovery. This is stage one of our implementation, meaning we will be implementing it this summer for credit recovery. We do know, however, that it's unlimited for the future in terms of the school year, so that course content from grades 6 to 12 in all of the courses in Edgenuity, including there's health courses, there's ACT prep, there's all kinds of core content courses. Those materials would be able to be accessed by teachers teaching those courses during the regular school year. Edgenuity, just a minute. I didn't write that one down. Edgenuity came with a price tag of $210,000, and that is a district-wide unlimited. So again, we moved away from an individual site, making a purchase of one tool, and then other schools making different decisions. So I think we'll probably save money, certainly on our summer school program. We're going to be watching the credit recovery component quickly and working with, or steadfastly, and working with the summer school teachers to really get a feel for their experience and how Edgenuity can be used in classrooms, in courses during the regular school year.
Thank you. And with that, Ms. Linda Pellis-Thompson, did you want to add anything before we jump in and start asking the questions on the high school?
Well, thank you, Mrs. Sayas-Martinez. First of all, it's delightful to be focusing on academics. It's pretty exciting. The work that both of you have done is pretty impressive. This was a difficult job. It was the inside out of a strategic plan. It's always good to start with the end in mind rather than trying to make the end meet the beginning. And I know, yeah, that John's giving me a thumbs up on that. So do appreciate the data that you used. It was intense. I'm also wanted to share that the schools do also have the opportunity to use other software that they are comfortable with. That's correct.
Yes.
As supplemental materials that they can purchase out of their own funding. So pretty excited about bringing a lot of different programs down. I think our administration is positive on the direction we're going.
Thank you. All right, we'll start with Ms. Connect.
Well, I asked my questions. I'll just say this. I think this is so important. I think it was very exciting this year that we had the opportunity, or that our instructors had the opportunity to try new things. What works? What do they like? What do the kids respond to? What do the parents like? Great. But it's really very important that our elementary schools in particular are utilizing the same tools, that our students are getting an equitable experience from school to school for two reasons. One, it's fair. And two, when they get to our high schools, and if the students haven't been having the same learning experiences and they land at the same high school, how do we then evaluate what it is that makes some kids successful and other kids less successful? Because, it's apples and oranges. So this really gives us a stronger advantage in ways to look at other factors that may be affecting kids. And so I think it's an excellent step in the right direction, especially with our emphasis on equity.
Ms. Pangarelli?
Well, thank you for the presentation. This is your second presentation. I think it was October 26th you gave the first presentation last year. I know, I looked it up. It didn't seem like that long ago.
No.
And I know at that point, I was going through, I think, just 3 programs, and they were pretty costly, about $410,000. So I'm glad to see you guys get it down from 40 programs down to the best 3.
Yeah.
Yes. And then the other thing I had was last time in October, we discussed the privacy issues, privacy policy. And I did want to ask you, Mr. Gay, we had talked about the privacy policy for all of the programs, each company. And I know you said you took the district takes a minimalist view on data. And I know we did get a supplemental email that said that there was a few other things that were being collected that you had known at that time. And it was explained to the board. But since we did work with 40 programs, I just want to know about the data destruction, and to make sure that our data is, that the companies are going to get rid of the data, and you're comfortable with that. And then also the companies were using the data retention and the management of the data.
Well, thank you, Ms. Yes, thank you, Ms. Pingarelli, and Ms. Monica Sea Martinez, and the rest of the board, and the superintendent, Kendra, everybody else here. It's a very big topic, and I want to answer that in a couple of ways, actually. And if you don't mind me taking a few moments to do that, I think it's an important topic. We do take a minimalist approach. We still, and what that means for those that may not have been part of those earlier conversations is that we share only the minimum data required to allow the program to function correctly at all, and then also to provide the results that are useful to teachers in making decisions about students, and of course by extension the students themselves and their families. And so generally speaking, that means that we provide class roster data so that when the teachers go to use the product, their students already have accounts set up, and that we're controlling those accounts so that as students come and go, we automatically take care of the students coming and going, and accounts get destroyed when the students are gone, things of that nature. And so we do that on a recurring basis. You mentioned the destruction of data. We look at, every time we use one of these products, we read their privacy policies and also their terms of use. And there's several things that we look for, and we've done that with all of these products. It was a little challenging with 40 of them going on, but we do focus on those, and in particular with the three that are under discussion tonight, Ingenuity, Read 180, and iReady. I've personally looked at those privacy policies and terms of use, and am satisfied that they are exactly what we expect from our vendors. Now, we still have to go back with those other products as we clean up the use of those and make sure that that data is being destroyed. And generally speaking, we don't ever really have a big concern about that, but that is something that we communicate with the companies, make sure that happens. Going forward, a couple of things we're doing. One is that, as I said, we looked at those policies in detail and make sure that they say all the right things. What I mean by that is that in terms of the use of the data, we look for what are they using the data for. And the data I'm referring to here is typically called personally identifiable information, or PII. And so there's specific rules about the protection of that data. So we want to know what are they using it for. And if we're satisfied from their privacy policy that they're using it specifically for scholastic purposes, that's test number one, then that's a good start. That allows us to consider them basically almost the same thing as a scholastic institution. The FERPA laws allow us to do that, so that gives them the right to use the information for that purpose. Then we look and find out, do they ever share it with anybody else? And sometimes they have to make their program work. And what I was very satisfied and gratified to read in those three particular products in particular is that they all require their third-party contractors to follow the same rules that they set. Now, there's some companies that don't do that. They just say, well, I don't know what they're going to use it for. And so these products are very good at making sure that that's done properly. The other thing we want to make sure is that when they do allow other companies to use it, it's for the scholastic purposes, and it's specifically not sold. And secondly, that it's not used for anything like ads or targeting students in any way that's not part of the scholastic, differentiation work and so forth. So I was very satisfied with all those. And then finally, we look at, well, what do you do with the data when we sever the relationship? And all of those companies have very clearly stated that they destroy the data they all call it a reasonable amount of time. In the industry, that's usually almost about 30 days. And that's a reasonable expectation for them to destroy the data. Now, the last thing I wanted to say, and I think this is important, because this is new territory for us, not just for us. We just recently held a symposium, first statewide symposium on IT and curriculum instruction and assessment, departments collaborating on these topics. We had a whole theme on this topic because it's very new. And so all of our colleagues exchanged ideas on it. But one of the things that we've launched, in fact, we had our inaugural organizational meeting today, was a whole program to develop a very comprehensive cybersecurity program that one aspect of this is specifically focused on privacy protection with regard to third parties. We had an outside expert come in for free, which was really nice, come in and give us some just outstanding advice on how we can not just read their policies, but put contract language in place and have them sign various things, and also do things like annual audits with them and so on and so forth. So we're excited about how we're going to strengthen the robustness of this program. So that was a long answer to your question, but I thought it was very important to get that out because it is a sensitive topic.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I just had one other question. I didn't get the cost for the Read 180. It was 300 and...
Read 180 is $302,000. Ms. Pingarelli, that is not all new costs because we've been adopting that. I don't know how many years, but it's kind of a movement of that into that high school to shore up that 9th grade, particularly since we made the decision of iReady K-8 And there was, however, an additional cost associated with the upgrade of System 44 for our ELL students, primarily.
Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval.
Thank you. Mr. Gay, you and I are going to compete on the long responses to questions, for sure. So congratulations and thank you, first and foremost. I mean, for going through the due diligence to go through this process to ensure efficiencies, throughout the district, and efficiencies and how we impact student learning. Certainly part of our strategic plan is good stewards of our budgets. So I really appreciate you keeping that in mind. Being that we're a unified school district, it is interesting to see how the two programs kind of potentially augment one another across the, certainly the continuum through K through 12, right? That said, I think Ms. Connect brought it up as well, is, one thing I don't want to do is, have the results of, these systems kind of be the end-all, be-all, tell-all with regard to the success of our students. It'll be interesting to see how these, obviously, these reports and success metrics, combined with, the social emotional learning of our students, and the dynamics that we're certainly aware of when it comes to barriers to learn, that we just maintain an equitable vision with regard to, student success throughout PUSD. So thank you.
That was one thing we did note on our study. You can overdo putting students on a digital product like this. So we knew from this approach that was also something that was a concern, and we wanted something reasonable. If you set a kid on this, we know this from having digital tools from long ago. If they're on it too long, it becomes unengaging and does not match what you want to achieve in that program.
Mm-hmm. Joan?
It's like familiarity breeding contempt. Anyway, I want to thank you for what has obviously been a massive, massive amount of work, and putting it into a method where we can understand what's going on. I do have some concerns with younger children using digital products, but it looks like we've covered a lot of the issues, and having them work with print a lot as well. I think maybe the digital in the early years is more of an excitement thing. That I can remember when I was a kid, I was so excited when I got a new book, but kids these days are more tuned to the digital, so we'll have to continue monitoring and following the results. And I'm just I'm pretty impressed with it, and especially I like how you got the price points pretty well.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We did have a kindergarten student who goes to our school district. Her mother is my reading curriculum content coach. So we also got to watch her experience digital tools with iReady, and that was delightful. So I'm looking forward to sharing these tools with you so that you can get a feel for what it actually looks like for our kids.
I love that.
Excellent, and I'll just highlight what they say. Congratulations on all the work and getting to the next chapter. A unified approach, but with still balancing act of autonomy at each school site to make those additional steps to meet the needs of those specific students. I look forward to hearing more, and basically I believe we've covered it all at this point, and we look forward to an update after seeing those data-driven results and closing that achievement gap.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right. 10.3, report and discussion on local, state, and federal legislative issues and activities.
You're good? Mr. Hicks says he's good.
All right.
We're moving.
We're good, there's nothing. I believe we finished.
Sorry.
Please.
Madam President, members of the board, I'm going to give some during the budget summary, which will incorporate some of those legislative things, and so that's why it'll be done then.
Fabulous, thank you. 10.4, request for agenda items for future governing board meetings. We do have a long list. We have been busy, and on the list, you could see some of these items will be addressed on the strategic plan. Is there anything else you would like to add at this point?
Mrs. Maceja Martinez, we were notified, and I can't even remember if it was email or snail mail, but the Arizona School Boards Association is asking school districts if they want to submit a suggested addition to the 2019 legislative agenda. So if that is in fact something we need to do, I don't remember what the deadline is. Somebody could check on that. It's coming up.
May 15th?
15th?
May 15th.
Oh, then we couldn't do it.
Yeah, we'd have to do it today.
Okay. Sorry.
All
Never
right.
mind.
Ms. Pingrelli?
No, not tonight.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, it looks like one of the items that I wanted to add is already on here, so, okay, thank you.
Excellent. Ms. Stone?
Are we working on bringing back the, that grant money that was taken from the junior ROTC?
Did you want to bring that back
I
for
do wanna
discussion? Okay. I have a first to bring back the Cactus High School ROTC. Do I have a second?
I will second.
We have a first and a second to add the junior ROTC grant funds back to future agenda item. Anything else, Ms. Stone?
I'd just like to expand that conversation, not just to the grant money, but to the program itself, to the aspects of the program itself.
A full presentation? Yeah. Okay, a full presentation. That'd be great. I know, okay, yes. All right, and the only thing that I'm thinking of is a strategic planning date, the next one. So if we could follow up, so we could get the ball moving for a future date, to get that in the book, so we can get the next step in our strategic plan.
Do that.
Perfect.
Which will include this stuff. Excellent.
Sorry, so real quick, and I think it was mentioned earlier, we talked a little bit about the bond committee. Did I hear that we will be getting an update at the next board meeting? We will?
Yes.
It's on the,
Yes,
it's going to be on the 24th.
It will be on the meeting of the 24th.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, we have all the future agenda items. Informational reports. 11.1, summary of fiscal year 2018-29 budget. Mr. Hicks.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Linda Pallas-Thompson, colleagues, community members. This is just providing the ability for us to have a conversation, discussion about some of the final 18-19 budget that went in place. Our last board meeting on October, I keep saying October, April 26 was a conditional approval contingent upon the budget, the governor's budget being approved as it was. It did actually happen as we were. We haven't got the exact budget form, so I know our superintendent says we predicted everything exactly. It probably won't be exact in that sense because we don't have the exact numbers. For example, the district additional assistants, we're still going off of estimates on that, so there will be probably a slight little plays here and there. So I wanted to provide an opportunity, but before I do that, I'm going to just hit some of the other things, as I talked briefly mentioned right there about the other legislative things that happen in the budget process, that budget bill. Actually, one I recognized when I see Mr. Kaltenbach over there is there was a bill that got put back in at the very end. I don't know if it got killed. About research, it did get killed. So there was one, sometimes as I've talked about during the legislative process, that during the legislative process we could work really hard to things that have maybe a negative impact to kill them, but really nothing's ever dead until the session ends. And so sometimes things that we thought were gone come back up in the very late hour as we're working through the process, and one of them was to limit board members of JTEDs in that sense. And so we have an employee that would have been affected by that, but luckily that did not pass, even though it got put in again at the end. So things that also went in, so one, there's a requirement for school districts, not charters, because they don't have the Auditor General Classroom report, to post that prominently on their website. So that was one request. And that is one that we've had conversations about, that very careful about that information just in and of itself can be very misleading and lead to a lot of wrong conclusions. And I've seen that a lot recently as people will use certain things. I think ours shows that our average salary now is at $48,595 for our classroom teacher. It is for the 2017, so it is a little bit old, and that came out at the end of February. And so without context of understanding that, it could be very misleading. I know the previous year, it was very low. It was down in 41,000. And so did we give a 17% raise to all classroom teachers in that sense? Or sometimes it's the timing of the data, sometimes it's the accuracy of the data in that. And so there needs to be a greater conversation. And normally we have that with our governing board to provide that. But just posting it on a website doesn't necessarily allow for those conversations to happen in that, and it can be taken out of context. And one that I've seen recently is where Peoria is compared to various different districts, not the same district, not the same data, but it's picking and choosing where it wants to, and then kind of misleading in that sense. And so, I do have a little bit of reservations about that. I would prefer to have a conversation with the board in that sense, and for people to reference and be there. I was interviewed by the Arizona Capital Times, and they asked about that, and I said, and that context was legislators, and they see that report, and I said, legislators should be asking the school district and having that conversation. You should develop that relationship and have more conversations so that you're not cherry picking data to make a point in that sense. And so it all tells a story and it all works together, and it really should be worked in that sense. So that's a very long conversation at the very first bullet I have here. The second requires districts and charters to post on their website separately from the budget the average salary of all teachers in the previous and current year, and $1 and percent increase average salary for teachers employed in the current year. So this is more just addressing some of the 20 by 20 requirements that they want, the state would like to see something posted on a website showing some of these calculations. And so we haven't got some of these, it requires the Auditor General to work with ADE to find out what the actual form is, so that we have, so how can they verify it? There's normally a attestation form that we'll have to attest to, submit to, or put a screenshot of our website to send in for compliance.
Ms. Connect?
Mr. Hicks, we're not prohibited by putting explanations there, along with the posted information.
Madam President, members of the board, no, I don't know exactly what the form's coming at in that sense, but there has been a lot of conversation amongst districts about putting more information and or more explanation in that, and the law doesn't prohibit that. It just has a minimum requirement posting on the website.
Just an example to what you're speaking about is an average of all of the employees, depending on whether you have a lot of experienced employees or young employees, will skew that average. I don't know that an average salary is a very good indicator of your employee salaries.
Madam President, members of the board, yes and no. I think it tells the story. You have to somehow give some indicator. Average is one way to do that. And so I use averages. I did at the last board meeting for the salary, some of fixed amounts, and to give some indicator what that looks like, we use the average salary. It could be less for some, it could be more for some. So there is a cautionary tale with that. And so I hadn't thought of that perspective, to be quite honest, is working with state and other officials and maybe our lobbyists to look at more intent language and how this is. I'm more worried about the skewedness of, we just had a celebration of a lot of people retiring. You retire and put different people in. Maybe you still have the same FTE, and now the average just changed.
It's gone down
It's just gone
because
down,
there's a
and
bunch
people
of new
say, I thought you
people.
just gave a 5% raise. How did the actual salary go down? But every single year, the makeup of your staff will be different.
Right, and people who are intent on shining a negative light on a school district would look at that and say, oh, look, they're not giving their full raise, when in fact, it's just a difference of retiring people at this level and a whole new slew of younger teachers coming in at a much lower level.
Yes.
So we have our work cut out for us making the public understand.
Madam President, members of the board, I agree. I actually think there's actually a heightened awareness on school finance and how things are, and so I think the public is willing to hear that, so I think it is a good conversation to have.
Good time, thanks.
Good time for it. So
Miss-
what? Yeah.
Sorry, Mr.
Oh, yeah.
Hicks. So along those lines, I mean, does it make sense to do an average across longevity, 0 to 5 years, et cetera, going up to 30, or, we just celebrated those who are, at 30 years. I mean, does it make sense to maybe show that picture?
Madam President, members of the board, I think, yes, I think, talked with Michelle, we were at the same, our lobbyist gave an update of some of this and how it is, and so I think that's an ongoing conversation. We need to see how are they asking us to present it on the website, and then how can we augment it with some of that data, I think is all good, relevant data. Yes.
I think you were reading my mind. I was thinking the same thing. We went to that NALEO conference and they talked about a longevity chart. And if you correlate that to salary, there is discrepancies there. Thank you.
Sorry, that's just making notes for, that's a good comment to have for, to augment that information. Another big part of the budget that went through included a lot of changes in school district procurement. Various changes, increased penalties for violation, asked the State Board of Ed to create additional rules or additional clarification. For example, they're going to have to create a process to how to verify vendors have licenses. So when you're doing a construction process and they have a license to, or an architect has a license, how are you verifying that? A lot of times they say they have it, and districts just say, okay, you have it. Now they're asking for a more delineated process to verify that those licenses are in place. Does require governing boards, as we award RFPs and other contracts, to include additional rationale for behind the decision. Increases the Auditor General authority for investigations if there is cause for any concern or any violation of the procurement code. Prohibits a school district from taking any reprisal against any employee if they also disclose any concern regarding maybe an impropriety in that sense or a violation. Prohibits school districts from hiring the same auditor for more than 3 consecutive years and cannot hire the firm for consulting services as well in that sense. That is one we're still getting clarification on. We already have an audit contract in place. I believe we're with our same auditor for 5 years. Second year of our 5-year contract with them, and so we're already past that 3 consecutive years, and so looking for clarification from the Auditor General on the interpretation of this law. It doesn't go into effect until August. We will already be halfway through our audit in that place, and so common sense tells us maybe this year it's not, but all new audit contracts that have to be approved by the Auditor General will then have this requirement that they cannot be in place for 3 consecutive years in that sense. And it does actually have a delay, the implementation of the procurement changes to July 1st of 2019. Another part of the budget bill that went through expanded the college credit program, whereas the district gets additional funding to include the social studies program, so that will be included next year. The difficulty with that is we still haven't been paid this year for the funds that for the program for this year, but we're already expanding it to next year. I think I've sent 3 emails to ADE asking when we're going to get funded and also the calculation behind the funding. And I haven't had a response yet. Just as a reminder, the college credit program allows for students that take either IB and or AP and receive college credit. The district receives funding, and the expectation at least half of that money goes back to the teacher from that standpoint. That was passed last year, and it was based on the data from the previous year, and we still haven't received funding. And I think I was asked, maybe it's a problem, we're having issues getting postings from the county, and so there's questions with their new system. I don't know where it is, I don't know where the money is, and nobody's responding. But that is increasing, so they're increasing that to include the social studies. Another big part of the budget bill included the School Facilities Board with a full page of changes from when I was reviewing. So it has just a lot of, just in general, let's just say there's a lot of changes and modifications to the process. And it did also, at the same time, I can't remember if I told the board, the School Facilities Board actually had a sunset clause. So it had a 20-year, normally when go in, they have 20-year life cycles. This agency had not been renewed, and so it was June 30th going to sunset and cease to exist if something didn't change. Part of this budget bill increased their operations for 4 years, so it gave them 4 more years. And it did increase some funding for new schools and increase the funding for some building renewal projects. And so the building renewal projects, we have received some funding from that. We also have preliminary funding for next year, so we would have been impacted if it was not, the agency continued. Right now we have 2 fire alarm control panels that are going through the system. That's approximately up to about $400,000 that we're receiving next year. That was in jeopardy if this was not extended, but it was extended. And it did also direct the Auditor General to conduct a special audit regarding the School Facilities Board and their building renewal grant process and their program. I didn't read the details of if they're searching for something specifically, but the Auditor General will have to now conduct a performance audit on that program. Results-based funding, it did continue the results-based funding. And it also changed a little bit where last year when it was approved approved for 2 years of funding, which was this year, and then next year was moving from 10%, the top 10% schools, moving to the grade system, our AZ Merit, our ADE letter grade system, and going to move over to those A schools. This delayed that 1 more year, so it's going to keep the same system in place. So those top 10% scoring school districts based on the AZ Merit will get based on the funding, based on the number of students and the amount per student, and it will delay the moving to the letter grades for 1 more year. So results-based funding continues. I know this is something that I personally emailed our legislators many times that I'm not a big fan of it. I think we should work on funding schools adequately first before we start funding them for the outcomes and expectations, because I believe a lot of it's derived basically from the socioeconomic status in that sense. And so people are benefiting just from where they live and not basically from what they're doing. And so that is something that I've communicated to our legislators. I've had a couple that have responded and said they'd like to continue that dialogue and talk more about that because they don't necessarily see my same viewpoint. And so that's a good opportunity to explain where we're coming from and why we should be looking at moving that $38 million just into the funding for all schools in that sense. So those are a lot of the, there was one other change. There were some changes to open meeting law. This didn't go through the actual budget bill, but we did get an update from some attorneys saying you might want to look at these changes to open meeting law. So I'm sorry that missed me. I think that happened 3 weeks or a month ago. I haven't provided that update because I did not actually notice it. So we'll, as an executive team, have to take a look at see if we're getting training and or what attorneys are saying the changes to the open meeting law actually happened in that sense. So that's a lot of the other stuff. And so now just getting back to our budget, what that happened. So inflation, so this is one that I was a little off on. We were projecting it at 1.77. It actually came in at 1.8%. So it was a little bit off there. Transportation support level, not sure why I didn't increase our rates there, but I was a little off there. They increased those mileage amounts by 1.8%, the same rate of inflation. The district additional cuts, we're still estimating about 3.8. Could be a little bit high. They continue just to give us estimates and do not give us the exact. Some of that is because the difficulty with ADE is it's hard to get exacts because there are a lot of hold harmless and a lot of those that are not implemented or not having to implement the cuts or they're being fully restored. And then you have non-state aid schools. And so they have to go through the whole system, look at every district, every charter, and project throughout and then make the cuts and see where they sit because their law requires them to cut up to get to reducing the $352 million by $100 million. And so they have to back into that number. And so it is something that I've complained about if they just said a hard cut of, hey, we're going to cut you $350 per kid of the $450 we get for additional assistance. It's easier to project, it's easier. But what we have had, and we've seen it, and hopefully I haven't spoke too much of it, but the cuts continue because the state has to look at, we have to receive X amount of funding cuts, where the state, the population of where the students are actually going to school varies, and some are cut eligible, some are not cut eligible, and so depending on how that changes, our cut changes. And so, for example, this year, our district additional assistance was reduced an additional, I think, 20 or 30,000 throughout the year that we weren't planning on. That wasn't known early, and they give us estimates, and it just happens that way because, not that we're shrinking, but maybe people left the districts that are the paying districts, the paying the cut districts, going to a non-state aid districts where they receive no state aid, and so they're not receiving the cut when they go over there, so they have to increase the cut to those of us that are left. It is something I disagree with. Now, it is easier for the legislature to pass. We just need to save $352 million, because then we would put the onus on them to do the work to back into where the dollar amount is if they picked amount. If they picked it and the revenues came in higher or lower, they would then have to make adjustments going forward. So they have done it, no begrudgingly, easier to them, but it makes it harder on us in that sense. And so that is where we still have a huge, or not a huge, but an estimate in that sense. Now, I'm going to say this again because you've heard me. We built this budget on growth. And so there are 232 kids greater than our enrollment is right now. So that comes with revenue, and then that was applied throughout. We received a 9% increase. That's coming out to about $10 million. We were projecting it just a little over 9.7, so that was a little bit higher. So there are some highs and some lows within those projections. And so we took all of that in. First, worked through the inflation funding part. I'm just kind of summarizing up, if that's okay, the budget process, and then worked through with the budget team looking, here's the inflation, and then we took everything separate and said, okay, district additional assistance, as that's coming on, now that we've done this, let's look at that. And so we did it in pieces in that sense, and I do see a couple members of our budget team here still tonight, and appreciate them for their service. And so what we looked at, and we had a lot of, hopefully shared a lot of it at the last meeting, a lot of conversation going back and forth of what is the right mix. How can we do it? There's not enough money to give everybody a 10% raise or to do 20 by 20 by 2020, and so we had to make choices, and so that's part of the process. And part of it was we had to take some off the top because of our state retirement and the Prop 206 and minimum wage increases. We're taking some money off the top. We then also, with growth, had increase in staff, and so we had to account for those increases in staff and some of the other positions that were mentioned at the last board meeting. Adding some of those positions also cost money in some of those actions. And so we worked through that whole process, and I just can't probably say enough, just because tensions, this was the first time we had a budget process where people were probably outwardly arguing with people, now done in a respectful manner. Nobody, hopefully I would check with them afterwards to make sure people were okay, because it does get heated when we're talking, but it is a good, I thought it was a good, safe place that people could say anything when they would say, don't take this from teachers, it's intended for teachers. And so we did, the recommendation we have, which is a part of what was presented at the last board meeting was, or at the April 26th board meeting, which is we were following the legislative intent. And so it does have governor and legislative intent language within this budget that the additional funds were for classroom teachers. And so we did follow the legislative intent that was provided to us in that sense. Now, we did use the district additional assistance for most everything but teachers. There is an extra day in there for teachers. And so we tried to do other things with those monies to help the non-certified and those that weren't getting the full increase that was provided by the governor. And so I just wanted to kind of maybe bear that all out, because I know we've heard a lot. I don't know if you guys have received as many emails as I have on the process and everything. The good news is I think I've gotten 3 or 4 people asking to be on the budget team next year, to be more part of this collaborative process that we have in place, and we welcome that. We only had 18, so 2 people dropped off, as mentioned at the last time. And I would say there are some recommendations we have going forward, and I know I've talked with our superintendent about how can we make it better, how can we try to adjust to some of these comments that we've had and this feedback we're hearing. And so I know she was coming up with, well, how can we take things off people's plate? Maybe there's another way to compensate people that aren't getting the full amount. Maybe we could make their jobs a little easier, take things off their plate. And so I know she was working on that. One other problem that we also, you may or may not have heard, although we addressed it briefly, and we talk about it in our budget team, which is new hire placement schedules. We haven't adjusted those in a long time, and so should we start looking to address those? We've been focusing on the people that work in the district first, caring about them first, but just looking and talking about it, and it's probably becoming a bigger concern. The concern would be we do not want to create compression right off the bat, that if somebody wasn't here, we increase the new hire exactly to what the existing are, meaning that somebody that was hired here last year is going to be paid the same amount as somebody here this year in that sense. And so just talking about maybe creating a formula, whatever increase we give to that group, that's the new hire placement goes up half, whatever that is. So if there's an increase of 5% for teachers next year, maybe the new hire placement schedule goes up 2.5%. So it does create a little bit of a gap and not create compression right off the bat. And so we've talked about that. We also looked at if next year is, which the governor's plan has next year going up 5%, that is a smaller lift. And so can we then look at, this would be a steep goal, but right off the bat, can we do 5% for everybody? Now, that would have to be an explicit goal right off the bat, because as departments and people are coming in for staffing requests, can we get this reclassification? Can we add this position? And we did some of that this year. Next year, the answer would probably be no. And then also the district additional assistance, we did not move all of it over to M&O. We kept some in capital, and we have capital needs. And you heard a presentation on some of the digital content that requires some capital funding. And some of that stayed in capital, and some of it was planned to stay over the next 4 years as that's restored. Does that still, it's all estimates and plans right now. And so rubber hits the road when they come back together and we look at it collectively. Do we still want to keep that, or maybe zero out the capital and move it over if the goal, overarching goal, is to give everybody exactly the same raise in that sense? And so providing that goal and expectation right up front, I think, would provide a lot of clarity and help out as the process goes on. So I hope I didn't talk too much. I didn't know. We just wanted an opportunity just to kind of summarize where the governor's budget, just in case. We said we'd come back and talk. And it really was pretty much right where we thought it would be from our lobbyists and from other comments. We knew pretty much where it was going to be.
Thank you very much. It was a lot of information. If you don't mind, I'll start this conversation. Ms. Connect, I agree. I want to highlight that, and Mr. Hicks' statement, that when you post data online without having additional rationale and conversation, it could be misleading. So it's very important that when we have data online, that we have that conversation. The engagement piece, that more future employees want to be a part of budget committees, is a win. That's great. And I want to elaborate on the school facilities board and capital needs. So you mentioned that in our budget for this coming year, we did put some money for capital needs. And capital needs, can you elaborate soft capital, hard capital, and what that money can be used for?
Yeah, Madam President, members of the board, sorry, I glossed really over that. And even at the last meeting, I mentioned it. So there's about $500,000 that'll be going from the district additional assistance, and it'll stay in the capital. It is South capital needs, and so you could use it for almost any capital purpose. But part of it, what we've identified, is we want to give more of it back to the schools, because a lot of the schools through the budget year will then start emailing us and say, can you transfer some of our M&O into capital, because they run out of capital. I think you remember probably last year around the AFR time, I said half the school, or most of the schools are already over halfway spent out of their capital, and we're only a quarter of the way through the year. And so the capital needs are great. And so I would say about a quarter of the money would be going directly to schools and using the principal discretion, and then looking at various departments with IT and maintenance getting the largest amount for them to start. What we would like to do is maybe, we've had the benefit and the privilege of having a bond that has provided a lot of upgrades in the capital needs of our facilities and our IT and technology. We really need to start building up those departments to live within our own capital allocations on a yearly basis instead of relying on a bond every year. And so I know Mr. Gay has heard me say many times, to fund your IT budget out of a bond is really a bad function. We really should be having an annual allocation that they can make decisions with of what the highest priority is. And they could be more flexible with how they're moving in that sense. And so the vast majority are going to those two departments to allow them to start doing some on their own allocation. There's a small amount for athletics and a small amount for our arts, maybe about 10,000 each, so not a lot. But we also want to start getting into that routine of every year, if we're going to increase our capital, let's start giving it back to the departments that have been starving for so long.
Thank you. And you also brought up School Facilities Board. Based on what happened this time period and moving forward, do you see a potential of more money being put into the School Facilities Board and Peoria Unified benefiting and receiving funds to address some of those needs?
Madam President, members of the board, that's a and so this is one we balance or try to discuss all the time. Yes, I do. Like, we had the 2 fire alarm control panels. There's still some outstanding elements of, we have 3 schools that are, they're doing some structural investigation to see if that relies. That could bear out that they would pay that. They're already doing the investigation part of it. The balance that is difficult is, like I was talking to our facilities director yesterday, and we could put things in the bond, and something that's 25, 28 years old that only had a life cycle of 20, we could replace it. And I said we should look at the SFB. The SFB necessarily will not replace it because it's actually working right now. But we know something that's already exceeding its life by over 5 years, next year being the 6th year, there's a greater chance of that failing, and if we have bond money, should we replace it? And so we go back and forth, and obviously I told them no, because that's a larger item. Some of the smaller ones were more quick to say, yes, let's not wait for a 20,000 and wait for it to fail, because that has consequences at our sites. If it's a huge chiller and it goes out and it's a compressor that's $20,000, and now we have a very uncomfortable situation at our school for a couple days, or if we're waiting for parts, that's a different conversation. But if we're also looking to replace an entire chiller system completely, that could be $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 that might be worth the wait. And so normally I say, yes, let's start the process, and if they come back and say no, then we'll go another way. So do I think it could bear more fruit? I think so, because we're every time you submit, it gets a little better. We have a new liaison. That person seems to be working with us a little bit better. So I do think the opportunities are greater next year than they are this year.
Excellent. And that's basically it, is that they're highlighting a potential that will receive more monies in capital based on this trend, this time period, and potentially for the School Facilities Board, that we could, as a district, receive funds from them to help fund some of our projects that we need in our district.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Sandoval.
Yeah, so, Mr. Hicks, when you're referring to the budget and, you know, the 3 scenarios that we spoke about, you know, a couple of board meetings ago, the option that you're saying that we were, you know, pretty close at assuming is the grayed out option. Yes. in that spreadsheet. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think, you know, as we look to subsequent years, you know, how we ensure an equitable increase across the board, you know, throughout the district. And so there's no perception of discounting the impact that certainly all of our positions have on the district and our students. You know, I think that's something that hopefully, you know, we can be sensitive to and certainly strive for, you know, without question. I know it's easier said than done, you know, based on funding, and there are a lot of dynamics involved. But I do appreciate the amount of effort that you and the budget team went through to look at all the different scenarios and how we can be as equitable as we possibly could with regard to the current numbers coming down from the state. That said, will we see a kind of a pure or a updated scenario that reflects everything that came down from the state, or is that in there? Is it? You look at it, we go.
Madam President, members of the board, are you asking is it attached to the agenda item? No. I don't know if that's what.
Yeah.
No. So it is exactly the grayed out area, but we could definitely. So one I think you're alluding to is one thing that I have heard over the last week and that I talked about at the April 26th was once it's finalized, we are going to use the same system where people accepted their contracts the electronic system to push out a notification so that they can see exactly where those increases are. Unfortunately, some of the things I say cause a lot of manual work, and our payroll person is having to manually do that. So we think that'll be done by Wednesday of next week.
Okay.
But she is having to hand do a lot of that. And so we will, I did not want to get out and say a communication, especially because I think that is a huge communication, because it'll personalize it directly to every single person. They'll click on a button and see exactly what the dollar increase is to them. And so I didn't want to get out with a district communication too far in front without knowing that. And so we'll be working with Ms. Airy to get out a more unified communication that also references so that people will know that they have to go back in, and we will have to click that acknowledgement of how much their increase is.
Gotcha. Now, that's good to hear, because I think, I have heard, from some individuals is, some get the percentage and understand that. There seemed to be a little confusion on what the base means. But some individuals, have a clearer picture if actual dollar values are used, right? So it's good to know that, we're kind of addressing those different ways that individuals, certainly comprehend, what's being communicated.
If I could just elaborate, Madam President, I agree 100%. As I've talked with some people on our budget team, it seems like we all know, and I assume everybody knows, when we're saying this is an increase on the base pay, there's 4 or 5 components that make up a teacher's pay. I think everybody intuitively knows that. They have gone out and tried to educate others, and they have come back and said they don't all know that. And so even though I talk about at the last meeting, this is an increase on the base pay, or this is the average increase on the base pay, could be higher or lower, there's an assumption that the other side, that the party that's affected by it knows the same language and what we're talking about. And so seeing the actual communication with the actual increase will, I think, help tremendously. So I agree with that.
Ms. Stone?
Well, thanks again for a stellar job working on the budget and getting us the information that we needed. I do appreciate efforts to include other staff in the raises and stuff. I know we're going to have difficulty doing that, maybe impossible at times, but trying to be as equitable as possible. I appreciate that. And I really appreciate you and your staff and all the hard work you do. Thank you.
Ms. Pingarelli?
Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Ms. Connect? All right. With that being said, there are no more questions or comments on the budget. I appreciate your time. On to 11.3, report on upcoming meetings and events that can be found online. Ms. Aries, you had shared some data. Do you mind sharing how many people went online in the past timeframe was, I believe, 2 months or a month to look for data on our website? You had shared a statistic.
President Saya Martinez, members of the board, I think you might be referencing just the past couple of weeks in light of the school closures that we've had. The data is from April 23rd through, I believe, May 7th, and it's related to our social media and specifically Facebook. We've had 8,761 Facebook comments that we've been monitoring and responding to on our Facebook page alone. Roughly 5,000 emails, so just going through a lot of communication with our staff and our parents.
Thank you, and I bring that up as it relates to meetings and events associated with our district, and as we move forward in communicating that the information is out there and our community is eager to find that information, so please continue to share the website or the Facebook page or stay connected with Twitter so they can receive that information and the events going on in our district. All right. In addition to more events, we have that time of year, Graduation City, across 42 schools and some programs. So if you are interested in checking out the celebrations within our district, by all means, join us. There will be some great representation, and we look forward to celebrate them. Next, 11.4, draft agenda for May 24th. And right now, you do not see all the line items, but Mr. Sandoval, you did highlight that this is the meeting where we're going to get a full presentation on the bond recommendation by the bond committee, and this will be on this meeting. It will be at 6 p.m., and we are working on getting the other agenda items from the list. All right, number 12, further discussions on the agenda items that were already previously discussed. Any governing board members would like to address?
Yes, please. I forgot to mention that I would like to see a report perhaps of the changes that we will be experiencing in our EL programming with the changes in the legislation this year.
I second that. Any other items that would like to be readdressed?
I do have something I would like to say. Harking back to governing board recognitions. Our staff here at the district has worked hard, has worked overtime, has just gone beyond what anybody could expect during the walkout and the stuff that had to be handled. It was not a good situation. You guys shone. You did very well. And I am very appreciative. I have heard, and I have, especially in regard to Ms. Pallas Thompson, I have had emails wanting her to remain the superintendent. You have done a wonderful job, and I have gotten a lot of good feedback and from our district staff handling this crisis. I really appreciate you all, and I wanted to say a big thank you to all of you and to Ms. Pallas Thompson for her leadership through it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and I believe we would all echo that sentiment. Okay. All right. We are at the end. It was an attempt for an hour and a half. We're at the point where we adjourn. May I get a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
And we have a first by Mr. Sandoval, a second by Ms. Connect. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Happy Mother's Day, everybody.
8:51. Happy Mother's Day.